Welcome to the Tech and Teaching Podcast, where we give you the tips, tricks, and drop general knowledge bombs on how your school can improve your live stream or podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you know when the latest episode of this magnificent amount of knowledge drops for you. I'm Eric, that's Jordan. Today we're continuing our series on multicam switching and how your broadcast can go next level. But first, Jordan, there's a workshop.
There is. Join us for the summer workshop June 5th at the Holta Center in York from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The Striv EDU summer workshop brings broadcasting, tech, and business teachers together to connect, learn, and grow to transform your classroom into a future-ready learning environment. We've got links to the details for the summer workshop in the description.
Click that link, please, would you? Now on with the show, because today we're talking about cameras, and we have talked about the physical cameras, so this is not the hardware of cameras. But when we talk about multicam switching, we have to talk about the cameras, right? But this is more about the purpose and the placement of said cameras. And sometimes teachers who are not fully immersed in the broadcast world don't necessarily understand the purpose of the multiple cameras, where to put them, the setup, how are they most effectively used. So that's what we're going to solve today. We're going to solve the issue of you don't know, we know, so we're going to tell you. Here we go. Ready? The first point is we want to talk about is our main camera. And Jordan, this is in a previous episodes, I talked about that when we deal with multicam switching, the main camera is the stake. It is the reason. It is the main dish. It is the main part of the dish. That's why we are watching the game, because we want to see the game, and we show the game on the main camera. In some of the other things that you'll see over the course of this series, you'll see it called the game camera, and it's literally because that's exactly what we're talking about. We want to see the game with the main camera. This operator, by the way, should have your steadiest, smoothest hand. This probably is not the introductory level camera. I think I've made that mistake at some events that we've done. Is I have said, "Oh, we've got a rookie or a young kid that's just wants to try it. Well, let's put them on main camera because all you got to do is move back and forth, right?" And we'll put someone more experienced on an ISO camera or the floor camera. And what I found is that's actually not what you want to do. Your broadcast does suffer a little bit unless that young kid or rookie picks it up just instantly, which can happen, of course.
Yeah.
But we want the steadiest, the smoothest hand. We need someone who understands the flow of whatever sport or activity you're showing. If you're showing football, you have to have a certain innate sense about where the play of a football game is about to happen. Like you have to understand where are they going to kick it to. You have to kind of be able to look at the players on the field and go, well, the defense is ready for this, so that's probably where the ball is kind of going to go to a certain extent, right? You have to understand basketball. You have to kind of understand when to zoom in and out for soccer. That's an important one. What do we want to see? How do we want to capture baseball or softball from that high behind home plate angle? You got to know and understand that kind of stuff as the main camera operator. It is the most important camera operator. The next most important, though, Jordan, is the ISO cam.
Yeah, the ISO camera, the isolation shot. That's going to be your tight shots on feature players. Big plays. Interceptions, sacks, dunks, kind of all those fun things. You can really get in and close and personal, I guess, to those key players. But it's sometimes also called the hero shot, or if you really want to be mean, you could shame some people. Like, I don't know how I feel about that, though. I don't know. I don't like shaming people.
Well, we're not. The shame cam is just a fun term for the crew only. That's not a thing that we say on the broadcast, right?
Well, no.
But it does in the process of keeping your crew engaged. Sometimes you have to say, "Show me a shame cam," and that should be a note to your ISO cam operator that we don't want to see who got fouled in a basketball game. We want to see who committed the foul. We want to see their reaction. Did they like the call? Did they understand what the call was? Are they Are they visibly upset that a call was against them, or were they upset and that's why they fouled? So shame cam is perhaps not the greatest use in the PC correct world that we currently live in, but for the crew only, not for the broadcast, shame cam, we can use that term.
Don't use those shots too often.
No,
that can get kind of annoying.
Yes.
And also you want it to be a kind of more of a positive broadcast anyway. At least I hope so. Another thing that with the ISO cameras, you can get your coaches, also your substitutions, and then your officials and any bench reactions that you're able to. If the bench is getting kind of animated, or if you have a official that might be getting a little animated or something, that could indicate the game's getting a little hot or something, that you could showcase that. Probably wouldn't use it to correct the official. Let's probably stay away from that, as far as like maybe the announcer's piggybacking off of that specific camera angle. But that's kind of a side note.
Right. Yeah. If we're showing officials, we want to show what is happening with the officials.
Yeah.
And I have actually talked to officials and official observers across the state of Nebraska, and they like watching Striv because, hey, if you got good camera people, they will show the officials and how they're working the game, and that's a big point of emphasis for the officials is how are you working the game. And the official observers love to see that kind of stuff. And so if you have an official who needs to talk to a coach during, let's just for instance say a basketball game, and you show that, then you can give context to what's going on in the game, right? Well, the official and the coach, is the coach very animated and the official is very calm? Is it the other way around? Again, that gives you context as a viewer as to what's going on during the broadcast. And so that's really where that ISO cam can shine. The location, and we'll talk more in detail about this, but typically your setup location for the ISO cam.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty close to your main camera if the space allows. That way they're kind of working in tandem. And it can be, if you have them right close to each other, it could be a sense of redundancy too, that if something with the main cam were to go down, all you have to do with your ISO is just have it zoom out, and then its main cam while you fix or do whatever you need to for the main cam, so that it kind of, you could swap roles too. But if space allows, pretty close to the main camera.
Right. It's also probably the shortest jump if you only have two cameras. If they are set up right next to each other, to a certain extent, you can get away without a communication system.
Right.
Actual headsets, you can literally just yell at each other if you're only 10 feet away from each other. It's not the greatest, but it can work. That's a smaller jump. And now our next set of cameras is where things get really fun. It's the court cam, it's the field cam, it's the wireless camera. The Swit technologies are really awesome. Hollyland makes some good stuff, but the ability to have a completely mobile, completely wireless camera can be a whole lot of fun for your broadcast. And so I'll call it the field cam for now, but just know that it applies to multiple angles. This camera in particular, if you've got someone able and willing to go to different spots, you can get some really cool stuff. This camera is capturing more of the similar types of shots than what the ISO cam just caught. So we're still getting coach reaction. We're getting bench reaction. We can show the crowd a little more, perhaps. We can show the cheerleaders. We can show different interesting pieces about the stadium or the arena. And we're using that camera probably the least amount in the broadcast. We're not showing game action as much. We're showing more reaction. A really good example, and I worked with a couple schools last fall during football season, is that field camera, really their downtime for the field camera is while the play happens. Because unless you have a replay system, and not everybody does, unless you have that replay system, that field camera is not going to be seen during game action. When we see the field camera is between plays. that's your time to shine. Now you should be giving your director a shot of the coach calls the quarterback over. They're going to talk about the play, and then quarterback runs on the field. That would be the perfect thing to see on the screen. Also, during basketball, you can get a quick cut to perhaps if the angle is right and they're running away from you, but they're backpedaling, we could see their face. We might also see the floor camera show the bench reaction. It's a good idea, and we'll talk about communication in our next episode actually of this series. But it's a good idea for the floor camera and the director to have a working idea of the types of shots that the director would like to see, so that if the director needs to direct the camera person every single time, it can kind of slow down the broadcast. But if your floor camera person can pick things up and go, I haven't shown the cheerleaders for a while, so let me get a good angle of that. And again, if you're completely mobile, you can go wherever within the space confines of your arena or field or what have you. So go show the cheerleaders. Get a different shot of the bench. We had a student this year, Mason from Sandy Creek, that we had with us on the CRC championship night, and we had Mason running all over the York City Auditorium while the main camera was showing 99% of the game. That wireless camera was up in a corner. It was literally in a huddle at one point, showing different angles all the time. And that's where those cameras really shine, and the wireless technology especially. But even if you're not wireless, you can have a sideline or a hoop cam. We've seen a few schools have gotten into the Marshall cameras, and so they have the ability to have a hoop cam, or in volleyball season they'll actually mount a camera on the net, and you can show that. Again, that one's most useful if you do have the replay system, right. But yep. Can show some fun stuff kind of between sets and between serves, if you will, stuff like that. So those court cams and the field cams, hoop cams, net cams, ton of fun, offers the most creativity, and I would say that's your kid who is the most creative one. If your best camera operator is on your main cam, you're most creative, you're most willing to go and get whatever kind of angle. If they really have a photography eye, that's the kid that you want on your field cam, on your court cam, because they can really pick up some cool stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility with that.
Yep. Oh, and by the way, one of the things coming into and out of commercial breaks for that floor cam, field cam, what have you, you have the ability. We've talked about getting bump shots, and that's a shot that is watch any NFL game, watch any NBA game. You'll see a shot from outside of the stadium or the arena. Normally, we don't necessarily have that kind of capability, but sometimes we do. Another thing they'll do is they'll position a ball or the pom-poms from steal a pom-pom from the cheerleader and kind of make a little scene, and they'll shoot that, and that will be the first shot coming back to the game from the commercial, is this little shot of the ball and the pom-pom. The other thing that you can always get, and you can always get it, always, cute and cuddly.
I want you to look cute and cuddly, Private.
Show your director cute and cuddly. Show the babies in the stands. Show the coach's kid on the sideline because he's decked out in his tie and he's got his hair slicked back and he's just living life, right? Show us cute and cuddly. I promise you, Jordan's laughing. It makes such a cool difference in the quality of your broadcast. Don't be overly intrusive, but show us the cute and cuddly kids. That's really the best part. All right, Jordan, we need to talk about now the actual locations. To a certain extent, we've kind of briefly overviewed it, but we want to talk about some of the actual setup locations. And let's start with football.
Yeah, so we, our diagrams and everything, we were privileged to find ESPN 3 kind of production requirements, I guess you could say. And they have where they would like to place it. Ours are going to be a little bit different, could follow some of their guidelines, but it's a good starting point at least. But as your main, as we kind of talked about, in the middle, I mean, especially if you only have one there, that's where it's going to be.
And getting to midfield is really, really quite important. It's not a whole lot of fun to have a football broadcast main camera that is on 1/3 of the field and then it's angled to the other goal line. That's a long way to shoot, and it really makes it kind of awkward. So if you can get it right at midfield, that's definitely preferred.
And then ISO is going to be right beside them, or like going off of that. I mean,
yeah. There's some options on ISO.
So ISO has some options. I mean, looking at this little diagram here, they're actually having 3 cameras that are up higher. That one's on the 25, the 50, and then the 25 on the opposite side, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so then as the play develops, whatever cameras, I guess, is closer to that action, or more straight on, head on, that's the camera that's capturing that play. And so your main will actually move back and forth between those 3 cameras. I'd like to see that implemented. Not implemented, but like be a part of a production that actually did that. I think that'd be kind of cool to just see how they do that, especially with just our more consumer-based cameras, to see how that kind of looks and flows. But you were mentioning earlier kind of some tweaks that you would do, and to kind of maybe open a smaller school up to some more ideas or applications, I guess.
Right. So one of the things that I would do is, the other thing to kind of keep in mind is ESPN's going at it from a vantage point of, we are going to a stadium that is usually a college football stadium.
Right. Yeah.
So unless you have a camera deck that's the same, more or less the same level at the 50 and at each 25, it doesn't really apply to you, because your stands don't go that far. Like to go to the same height off the ground at each 25 and midfield, your 25-yard cameras are literally going to be floating out in nothing, because there's no stands there.
Let us know if you can do that. I'd like to
I would
get
love
that
to see
technology.
Yeah. But what you could do is you could eschew. We talked about this earlier. One thing that you could do is, instead of doing midfield and both 25s, you could actually do main and ISO right at midfield, essentially at the same camera angle. Obviously, what you lose there is you lose a little bit of the ability to have your perspective kind of move with the team as it moves up and down the field. But what you gain is you get, again, your main and your ISO camera in the same location. Your communication gets a lot better. Another, to continue the discussion for what ESPN then would say should be your next camera, should be one in an end zone. Now, they say they have kind of 2 end zone cameras, one that's a low and one that's a high. So think about a football, an NFL game. Memorial Stadium, actually, to watch a Husker game is a really good example, because Memorial Stadium, typically they will have a low end zone, would be in the north end zone. That'd be toward the big screen. And then their high end zone camera is actually the camera deck that they built out here a few years ago, and it's all the way at the very, very top of South Stadium. That is their high end zone. And so if you think about, whenever a team is kicking a field goal or extra point, no matter which direction they're kicking it, the camera angle that we see is always from South Stadium at the very top of the stadium. So they're either kicking it toward the camera or away from the camera, but that's the camera that we see. Then you see a lot of replay shots from field level in the north end zone pointing back. What's interesting, and we need to talk about this now, is the rule of 180 does not get broken, even with that production, even with the NET, Big Ten Network, ESPN, whoever it is. The rule of 180 doesn't really get broken, right? So if we drew a dotted line right down the middle of the field that went from goalpost to goalpost, and we split the entire stadium on that line, there's no perspective of a camera that crosses that line and then shoots back at the other cameras. And so what that does as a viewer, and I know we've talked about this in other teachings and workshops and stuff like that, but really what that does is that as a viewer, you don't want your perspective to change. I don't want to be sitting on this side of the stands and watching a game go this way, have a play happen down here, and then because you have a camera in the wrong spot, suddenly my perspective changes, and now that same play is now happening over here. And literally in your brain, you're thinking, oh, I just saw it over here. Why is it now happening this way? And things are literally mirrored, and it becomes a really awkward viewing experience.
It takes a lot of brain power for the viewer to actually like start making the connections and then be like, okay, now I got to switch. Okay, now I'm sitting over here technically, and so it's, do not cross that line.
If you're going to cross the line, you better come at it with 20 different cameras. And as a viewer, we need to understand, you have every angle covered. That helps. And also because when you do cross that line and you do shoot back, it has to be a shot that we don't necessarily see the perspective of anything around it. Like, I don't want to see anything in the background that lets me know, I know that landmark and that's in that corner of the stadium, or that's in that corner of the gym because I know that gym, and I know that's backwards now because, again, all of that's brain power for your viewer. Instead of you're presenting your viewer a shot of the coach, but if we have to see that from the opposite side and we see the main cameras in the background, again, you've kind of lost that magic. So that's why it's really, if you've done it well, you won't break that rule of 180 unless you're very specific about it. We have digressed greatly. Let's move on to our next sport, shall we? Volleyball is obviously another one in the fall. We want to get people up to speed on this. Your basic 4 camera for volleyball, and this is kind of fun actually. ESPN would recommend that you have your high game camera in the middle, as high as you can, so not unsimilar to, for most of our gyms, not unsimilar to where we'd set up for basketball. Camera 2, they would actually use as a slash cam, and they would set that second camera up in a corner to shoot diagonally across the court, across the gym. So think of that ISO cam now. We should be able to hopefully zoom in across the court to the server's face, and we would cut to that. We could perhaps see the benches. We could see the substitutions coming in. We could see the play at the net. Again, if you have replay system available, man, you can get some cool looking angles. And because we have changed the viewing perspective without breaking the rule of 180, so we're on the same side as our main camera. We're just set up in the corner. We can now really have some fun with some different angles of stuff. Their next camera that they would have would be a wireless camera, and it would be on the floor between the 10-foot lines. And so you would actually, if you see them on TV sometimes, you'll actually notice that those camera people sit in rolling office chairs, and they will literally roll back and forth on each side of the net, depending on who's hitting it. And so they get kind of crazy because they're literally sitting in their chair, just rotating back and forth. But it'd be kind of fun, actually, to operate that for one game.
Yeah, I'd concur.
And then camera 4, if you have the cameras and you have the space, the next place to be would be opposite side of the arena from your slash cam. So if our perspective is on the near side for our main camera, on the same side but in the corner is our slash camera. Now we've gone to the right side, if you will, and we've gone into the middle of the court while not crossing that 180 line, and now we have a from behind one side to really see a play develop. This is like an end zone camera in football. Volleyball teams, if you have the gym space to do it, man, it can really add. You got a volleyball team that's really good at the slide sets and the quick sets and stuff like that. You can see how a defense sets up. For a volleyball-minded person, that end view is a total game changer. You can see so many different things there.
Yeah, you're going to be able to really pull in your viewer and really give them that almost in-person experience just with that slash cam and your handheld and the that fourth outside court, I guess, if you want to call it. So just putting those all together, and you're gonna put on a really good show with that.
Yep. Jordan, let's talk about baseball and softball. Obviously, in Nebraska, we have softball in the fall, baseball in the spring. But let's talk about some of the camera setups for baseball,
Yeah.
and softball.
So the main cam obviously is going to be behind home plate, working around those pesky poles.
Yes.
That's usually the worst part about softball or baseball is just having to look through that chain link fence, or the really nice ones have that netting that you don't really see. But I guess so you'll have to adjust kind of so you're not having a pole right in the middle and you're getting a full picture of the home plate. But then you get going out for your ISO cameras, your first and third, your baselines there of shooting at those would be the next point. But you've done something pretty cool a little bit farther than that.
A little bit farther than that. The angle that you see most on TV, if you watch Major League Baseball, you watch Women's College World Series, is you'll get the shot from center field shooting back, and so really you get to see the pitcher and their movement and their windup, usually through release. And if there's contact from the batter, that's when when your camera director is switching to that behind home plate. It is interesting, and really in preparation for this, as I was thinking about it, it really dawned on me, baseball/softball is really the one sport where it's not only okay, but it's actually preferred that you do break the rule of 180. Because as we just explained, if you're shooting from center field towards home plate, and that's one camera angle, and then you literally have a camera exactly 180 from that, pointing from behind home plate back out into the field, you're literally pointing at each other. But Eric and Jordan, doesn't that go against the rule you just said? Yes, it does.
Baseball's a little unique.
Baseball's unique
I
in
think
the way
you could
that
probably
happens.
draw a line right at your home plate camera, and you draw it 180 degrees, and so everything's on the one side.
Right.
So it's like fair game.
Right.
I don't know, that's where my mind goes. But yeah, now that you say that is kind of interesting and weird at the same time.
So let's move on to soccer now, and soccer is again a similar kind of feel for similar to football. What the rest of the world calls football, we call soccer, of course, and what we call football, everybody else calls whatever the Americans play, and that's okay. But similarly, we're looking at midfield, as close as we can get to midfield for our main camera. That's where we want to be. Camera 2, that ISO cam, again, you have a little bit of flexibility. ESPN would like to see that again in the middle of the court, or of the pitch, as it's called, for those tight shots. Your third camera would actually be your wireless, your handheld camera, so ability to go up and down the sidelines. Soccer again is unique for an outdoor sport in the fact that it is more like volleyball. The fact that you have both teams on the same side of the field for their benches. It's not like football where we're on opposite sides of the field. We're on the same side for soccer. And so you can have that handheld camera going up and down the sideline. And then if you have the ability and, again, the equipment to pull it off, you could do a high end zone similar to how you would do a high end zone in football. And, again, that camera would give you a totally different perspective, give you the wide shot of that field, probably get you some cool stadium shots as well if you did it right. So kind of building your cameras up to what you would do there. Again, 1 and 2, your main and ISO, high and in the middle of the field. Camera 3 would be your on-field camera, your mobile camera if possible, and then camera 4 would be your stationary, but would be your high end zone camera there for soccer.
Yeah, and if you don't like for football and even volleyball, soccer here, where it says a high, even if you don't have a high, something to raise it up high, put it on the ground. Like, just use a tripod, and that'll still get you some really cool behind for soccer. And for instance, that really cool shot behind the net. That's a really cool shot that you can give your viewers a more close up experience.
Yep. And then the last sport that we want to talk about, Jordan, is basketball, and it's certainly one that we've learned a lot over the years, and it has been really fun to have the ability to expand some of our broadcasts, and we've been able to do that with some of the students at state basketball and different events. Heartland Hoops Classic has been a big learning environment for us.
Right.
So it's been a lot of fun. So let's take people through what basketball would look like.
Yeah, so for a 4-camera setup, main and ISO are at the top, mid-court, looking down, kind of straightforward and simple. And then we're going to have wireless cameras under each basketball hoop on the correct side of the hoop. That way we're not breaking that 180 rule. And that, by and large, if you're there, that's a really cool place to be. Far as 4 cameras and then having 2 on the floor, you can capture a lot of good shots. If you do have a 5th camera, you can put that up high in kind of the corner of your gym or whatever, and have that as like an arena shot or even a slash cam if you have a decent enough camera that can zoom. That's kind of where we've put things in the past. If you're watching ESPN or anything like that, I didn't know this, but now they are putting little cameras on the ground in the base of the hoop.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. Not just on top or behind the hoop, I should say, not in, but behind the hoop. But now they're putting them down on the ground. So there's a lot of creativity there that probably wouldn't be the best use for your wireless cameras since they're so big. But the possibilities are endless because of where you want to place them. It's just more of behind the hoop, and even the wireless cameras, just making sure that you're out of the way, that you're not obstructing the official or in his way, or even the players. That's one thing that I've always worried about at Heartland Hoops when we put the hoop cams up, is this thing going to fall? Because, the ball's beating on that backboard and it's moving, and you just don't want it to fall and hurt somebody.
Right.
But then just crash, and then now you're stalling the game because of something that incompetence.
Because of something that could have been avoided.
Yeah. Yep.
And what's fun to think about is all those little peripheral stuff. Those Marshall broadcasting cameras work great as a hoop cam, net cam on for volleyball. I've seen them used in dugouts for baseball and softball, so you get a dugout reaction shot, after a home run, something like that. Just a lot of really cool, fun little things. If we're recording this the first time just after a couple weeks after March Madness, and for the championship games they set up their rail cam, and they will have used that, and so they actually build a track on the floor with it's a couple, 2 or 3 people controlling it. One person is controlling the camera sliding up and down the court on this track. Another person manning a wireless remote to change the angle of the camera. So those two need to work in symphony to move the camera yet keep the ball in frame. And oh, by the way, it's usually a shallower depth of field. And so they're actually talking about pulling focus and making sure that the game stays in focus. So you got 3 people working on one camera.
Talk about a job
that you don't use all the time. But like when we talk about, man, you could start with this kind of stuff for your school and dream about being on that crew. That's exactly what we're talking about, is getting yourself to that level and go, I need the knowledge to know how to run that type of a camera. Well, this is where that knowledge starts. If you understand what you're trying to capture here, it's going to make you that much more ready for the future job of running that slider cam, running a PTZ camera that's mounted on the wall even can really help with that. You're just playing video games at that point, right? So lot of good stuff, and we hope that this really gives you some more insight. Again, if you are the teacher that's not fully immersed in that broadcast world, hopefully what we gave you today is a better working knowledge and a way to teach your students a little more efficiently, instead of just kind of saying, see what you get. How about we send them to a spot and then see what they get? And again, we want to invite you to join us for our Striv EDU Summer Workshop, June 5th, Holtis Center in York, Nebraska, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's a big day for us. We're going to bring together broadcasting, tech, and business teachers together to help connect, learn, and grow from each other. And we're going to transform some classrooms into future-ready learning environments. The link for the workshop down in the description, so make sure you check it out. Our next show, Jordan, communication.
It's so important.
We're
so important.
We're going to learn how to talk. We're going to learn you good.
I should take some notes.
We should. We will practice that before. That's Jordan. I'm Eric. Thanks for watching us on the Tech and Teaching Podcast.